Hey, Curtis,
Oh, hey there, Oz.
do you have a movie to kick off our new theme?
I do have a movie to kick off our new theme. Summer movies.
Mm-hmm.
Wink, wink. We're going to start off with this new month's movie marriage. We're going to do some Reno 911
Okay.
meets Meatballs.
Yeah.
Plus some mid-comedies, The State. Mid-90s comedies, The State. We're going to throw in a pinch of Law and Order Special Victims Unit. And it all comes together at a Del Monte vegetable manufacturing plant. This week we're watching Wet Hot American Summer.
I remember that episode of SVU where the refrigerator was the victim.
It was as opposed to a body on the slab. It was just a commercial grade refrigerator.
That's all it was. A Frigidaire.
A lot of HVAC talk in that episode.
They still had a guy carrying boxes though.
Yeah.
And he always had the information you need.
It was always right there.
No.
Oh yeah, you're so and so. Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry. Yeah, I heard it, Jerry.
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah, he works down the corner with Franco. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, the podcast where we take a monthly theme. Like you said, this month we're going with summer movies, which, disclaimer, we said at the end of last episode, we do know that summer doesn't technically start until June, but
why not?
And education, you start in May.
Yeah.
So I'm one of your hosts, Oz.
I am the other host, Curtis.
And before we get rolling on this delightful conversation of not Spawn, we want to give out a shout out to our Patreon subscribers: Don S, Aaron A, Mandy K, Melissa L, and Colleen K. Thank you for your patronage.
Thank you, one and all. You make our summers that much more special.
Yes, you do. This movie is probably the catalyst for the theme.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, I mean, it was how do we get that movie in there? So, yeah, one of our favorites from long, long ago. Still is.
This movie's 23 years old now.
Yes, and I still laugh. Like, I watch it, and I just feel good. Like, I'm watching it, and I'm like, this movie is just, like, right in my wheelhouse of comedy.
Yeah.
Like,
if I need a smile on my face, this movie will bring me that smile.
It feels cool, even though obviously, it's never going to cross, paths just because of the size of the world, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, it's cool when you're watching a film or a show or whatever, and you're just like, I know I would probably be really good friends with those people if given the opportunity for the universes to collide. If the
stars aligned.
Yeah. That it's like, that group I could fit into, but we enjoy from afar. So you have the plot this week.
I do have the thick, juicy plot of this movie.
And I am going, exactly, thick and juicy. I'm going to cover the cast, which there's not a weak spot in the cast.
No.
Like, it is
everybody hits.
Yes, it is a who's who of Groundlings, Upright Citizens Brigade, Stella / State.
Yeah, like State, yeah.
It's just this treasure trove of like improv comedy that it just gets knocked out of the park. First and foremost, we have camp director Beth, played by Janeane Garofalo.
Beth,
and honestly, probably my favorite Janeane Garofalo performance.
Oh, easily. She's so good in this movie.
She's so perfect in this movie. Her love interest, Associate Professor Henry Newman, played by David Hyde Pierce.
You got it right. Associate Professor.
Yeah, Associate Professor. Molly Shannon makes an appearance as like the arts and crafts person. Gail von Kleinenstein. Paul Rudd is there. Paul Rudding it up as Andy. God. Christopher Maloney from, as you said, SVU is Gene. And then we start, there's a lot more, but you roll into this, like, the stable of Michael Showalter, Ken Marino, Michael Ian Black, 80 Miles, Andy Poehler, Joe Lo Truglio. Those guys all fall into that umbrella of that like that underground comedy scene.
Yeah, some kind of stand up and or improv background, like Upright Citizens Brigade for Amy Poehler. Yeah.
And then, just throwing in Marguerite Moreau, Zach Orth. I think I mentioned 80 Miles, Nina Hellman, Bradley Cooper's film debut.
Yes.
We just Elizabeth Banks, Judd Freelander, Archer himself, H. John Benjamin plays the voice of a can of vegetables.
Bob from Bob's Burgers.
Exactly. And so it's just, I almost said Christopher Guest, and I knew as that's in my mind, I'm like, no, you idiot, it's David Wayne. But just, this is one of those, I mentioned it a few weeks ago, of it's fun watching a project that you get the vibe that everybody wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel watching this. Obviously, this is pre-fame for everyone on this list. With the exception of maybe David Hyde Pierce and Amali Shannon.
Paul Rudd had started to kind of establish himself. This is a couple years after Clueless, and he did several other kind of, like late 90s, like rom-coms and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, Halloween 6. How could we forget? That was actually the subtitle of Halloween 6. How could we forget?
It's actually the subtitle of this movie, too. Wet Hot American Summer, Halloween 6. How could we forget? But no, it's like pre-fame, like pre-big fame for everybody on this list. So to see them all in this like melting pot of ability is like, you just question afterwards, like, why didn't some of these people make it bigger?
Yeah.
Like, like a Ken Marino, why wasn't he bigger?
He pops up in a lot of stuff, but he's never really been like the guy in anything.
Right. Yeah. He's got the look, but he just never really, hit it off. But these guys are just hysterical.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they stay busy for sure. But I love that they're all in this movie. So that's what we have for the cast. I left a lot of names out because honestly, it doesn't matter if you know who Gary or Ben or Steve or Neil are.
Yeah.
It's because we'll probably just refer to them by like 80 Miles and Bradley Cooper.
Joe Lo Truglio.
Or exactly. So, all right, I'm going to shut up and let you get to the plot.
Yes. Yeah. Like, again, being transparent, there's not a whole lot of plot to this movie, which will probably come up later. But again, I will basically just go through the series of hijinks that is this movie.
Which connects it all together.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a full plot on the last full day of camp.
Well, it is the last day of camp. It's the last day of summer camp up at I forget the name of the camp.
Camp Firewood.
That's right, Camp Firewood up near Waterville, Maine.
Yeah.
We open on some teen quote unquote camp counselors
partying
around a campfire while Jane by Jefferson Starship plays. I do love how, again, with a couple exceptions, most of this cast playing like teen counselors are in their late 20s at this point.
Yeah. And there's a couple of even like callbacks to that of I'm 16 years old, where it's just like, sure. You're not. We know you're not. That's why it's funny.
It's the last day of camp at Camp Firewood, August 18th, 1981, 5:57 a.m. is the first title card that we get there. Campers are singing Jukebox Hero as they wake up Coop. The camp counselor in one of the cabins. Katie's helping the girls with the makeup. We meet camp director Beth. And camp neighbor Henry, whose home is feet from the campsite.
Well, and
like she steps out of her office or whatever, and there he is, like 20 feet away on his porch.
And they've not seen each other ever before.
No,
but and just also little throwaway gags of like, the kid. Never mind. You may get to it. If not, I'll reference that.
Sure. So Beth and Henry like awkwardly kind of make eyes at each other as they've noticed each other for the first time, despite being neighbors for how long. We hear a camper kind of doing a voiceover. It turns out he's narrating on a radio show. telling everyone to listen in and keep listening in as he continues his show, Jewish Day School Radio, once he gets back from camp. and he mentions something that is kind of a through line for this movie.
Yeah,
and he talks about finding that special someone today and having someone to kiss after tonight's talent show.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like the intersection between these little scenes where the boys are waking up Coop and the girl, it's like there's this overhead shot of the girls' cabin as like all the blankets are rustling around, and then like all the boys run out of the girls' cabin, and then like as Beth's sitting on the front porch with the nurse drinking
a cup of coffee,
yeah, there's just zigzagging of dozens of like prepubescent boys running back to their cabins from the girls' cabins where they'd stayed all night.
You guys better get back to your bugs.
Yeah, a lot of energy.
You're in trouble. We meet Andy and Katie, Paul Rudd and Marguerite Moreau making out while Coop longingly watches. I just have in my notes here, just Paul Rudd's tongue in this.
Oh yeah,
like they frame themselves so they're kind of. It's the side of their faces.
It's like profile.
Yeah, profile. Yeah, I was searching for that word, profile of the camera. And Paul Rudd just like sticks his tongue out of the side of his mouth. So you just see his tongue like waggling.
It's like licking your cheek while they're kissing. Yeah, it's pretty aggressive.
Yes, yeah. Katie then kind of fake flirts with a very awkward Coop. She promises, I'm going to find you a woman today. As she walks away, he says a couple of things under his breath.
I know, that's what's going to make it hard for this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of... this movie's hysterical, but there's a lot of really dirty jokes in it. So we will be giving the PG sanitized version of this.
Which, a lot of those dirty jokes fly out with children in scene.
Oh yeah, and in immediate vicinity. Like yes. they have zero cares about these 12-year-olds that they're surrounded by.
Yeah, which as a parent is disconcerting, but as a viewer, it's
it's hysterical.
It just adds another layer of comedy. Of like, you did all this in front of all these children.
We meet a very confident camper named Victor Pulak, played by Ken Marino, who goes up and talks to Coop about Katie as well and his desires for her because he's the ladies' man.
Clearly, that's what she was talking to Coop about, was being with him.
Yes. Beth then walks over to Associate Professor Henry's house. He's an associate professor of astrophysics.
Right.
And she invites him to come over. Why don't you come over to the camp? Talk to the kids about space.
No, I can't.
Well, first he says, no, I don't work at the camp. And she's like, yeah, I know, I'm the director.
I just love that. I just love that stupidity.
Yeah. Patreon subscriber Melissa L. and I frequently recapture this scene here as she why don't you come talk to the campers? No, I couldn't possibly. Oh, come on. No, I couldn't possibly. Oh, it'll be fun. I said no.
We also get the first, second, and maybe even third recurring bit where
the sound drop,
where something is thrown or dropped, and you get like a terracotta pot breaking.
And it's the same sound effect.
It's the same sound,
just looped in like half a dozen times within 30 seconds.
Well, and just the comedy genius of Wayne knowing that if we do this once and then do it again in 20 minutes, people are going to miss it.
Yeah,
but if we throw this sound effect in like 2 or 3 times in rapid order, that's going to without trying, that's going to establish that this is coming back, right? And it's a lot of people will miss it. You and I, being the comedy geniuses we are,
that you and I are, yes. And I like to think that we're in the Wayne and Showalter class of comedy.
I'm sure they've been waiting to be Patreon subscribers.
Well, and
they listen.
Well, I think, and they say that I, Michael Ian Black, aspire to be in the Oz and Curtis level of comedy.
Yeah, Michael Ian Black, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I love all of his contributions to I Love the 80s and I Love the 90s on VH1. And he's just been waiting. So, Michael Ian Black, we'd love to have you on the show if you're still interested.
Yeah. Or at the very least, toss some money in our coffers and sign up to be a Patreon subscriber.
That too. Whatever.
We then cut to the mess hall. Everybody's having breakfast, and this is really where kind of like the little plot threads get laid out here. For most of them get established here. You know, we've already got the Coop and Katie, you know, and Andy love triangle. You know, we already heard from the from the kid doing Jewish day school radio about the big talent show tonight. So we're in the mess hall, and Victor's, of course, he's back, and now he's talking to Coop about wanting Abby Bernstein. There's something about pollinating. I'll just let our listeners and viewers put that together. We meet Gene Christopher Maloney. Is it Grandzaddy Christopher Maloney? He is a hunk of a man, Oz.
He is.
He's like 63.
Yeah, he looks great.
He was chiseled from granite.
Yes.
So he's playing the camp chef, a Vietnam War veteran. He was in The Nam. As he reminds Gary, his assistant, played by A.D. Miles. A nerdy camp counselor hits on several female campers, brags about his dungeon master status.
Right.
Victor sees Abby flirting with him. And he doesn't quite know what to make of it. So he drops his plate and then awkwardly finds a place to put his hand to lean.
She's basically making out with her spoon.
Yeah. So that's the first little hint that Victor might not be all that he says he is. Yeah.
A little awkward.
As Beth, Nurse Nancy, and the other adults eat, Beth sees Henry walk in. He took up her invitation. He asked JJ, played by Zach Orth, you know, where do the indoor kids sit?
Yeah.
And they all get really fired up about doing science projects with him today.
On the last day
of camp. And Beth is very happy and taken by this.
Yeah.
Gene misspeaks to Gary about we'll say his cream. Just leave it at that. And says that he said that he wanted to do something with himself.
Right.
But he says that no, I actually said I was talking about my team, my stickball team.
Yeah.
I gotta go play stickball. And then he hurriedly leaves after Gary calls him, like, that's not what you said. You clearly said something pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Just slipped out.
Yep. So Beth tells Victor and Neil that you got to take several kids to Moose River
for an overnight trip.
Yes.
On the last day
of camp, which of course spoils Victor pursuing Abby now.
Yeah, that was his plan.
So he's bummed out and upset. We meet Ben and Susie, played by Bradley Cooper and Andy Richter's little sister, Amy Poehler, who is really all I knew her by at this point.
Oh, at that point, yeah.
And they are putting on a very serious production of Godspell for the talent show tonight. And then we cut back to Andy yelling at Katie for suffocating him, as after she asks him to take a walk with her. And as she's like, why are you being such a jerk? He just kind of looks off camera. My butt itches. Hey, JJ, save me a waffle.
Oh, Andy.
And so he just walks away from Katie to go get his waffle and just flips off Katie as he's walking away.
And then high fives JJ
after
JJ. He does so.
Yes, because that's a special moment for him, I guess. We briefly meet arts and crafts teacher Gail, played by, as you mentioned before, Molly Shannon. She's struggling to hold it together, Oz. She's telling the kids about how her marriage to Jonas fell apart, and then she got hooked up with Ron, and she thought he was the one, and she just breaks down in front of these 8-year-old kids.
And that's another beat, that I really enjoyed this movie. I mentioned it a couple different times. But clearly we cast as teens a bunch of adults, playing these teens. But the camp kids are kids.
Yes, they're actual children. They're all 8 to 14-year-old children.
Yeah, these are all camp-aged children.
Yeah.
So when you see Molly Shannon break down with this, mainly because she asked the kids to color with crayons, and like everything's fine so far. It's just like, once you guys color, would use crayons, and they get the stuff out, and one girl's like, we have one brown crayon. We literally have hundreds of markers. She just loses it.
She just starts weeping.
Yeah, it was like that was the straw.
That was it.
This was the only thing I had control of.
Yeah, we were going to color with crayons today. You suggest we use markers. I am a failure at life.
And it turns into this like reverse teen counseling.
Yes.
You know.
So this one particular child just starts consoling her, which is the through line for that whole bit.
Yeah.
We cut back to Abby and Victor as he's about to leave with Neil to take the kids to Moose River. And she asks Victor, you got stick gum?
Stick of gum, Victor.
And he's like, yeah.
Can't get it out of his pocket fast enough.
No, he can't. And then they share a brief romantic moment. And he's like, I got to go with Neil. Wait for me, Abby.
Just don't go.
Yeah. But I have to.
Or did she...
Yes.
Literally and figuratively elevates him.
Yes. In more ways than one.
Yes.
We then again, this movie's kind of all over the place. I was trying in some ways to try to keep some of the plot threads together in my notes, and it whatever. So there will be moments during the plot where I'm hopping from scene to scene. There will be others where I go a little out of order and just to kind of keep the storylines together. But
well, you're not going to lose me. I've seen it.
Yeah. Title card says 9:35 a.m. So all of this has happened in like the couple hours. As Henry is with the indoor kids doing science experiments, he spots something in the sky and is very worried.
With his naked eye.
Yeah. In the mess hall, Andy is still there, and he's the only one left. And he gets done. He just knocks his plate onto the floor.
Just tosses it.
And Beth comes up and just tells him like, pick it up, and he just.
It's just a little tantrum. Yeah.
He throws the equivalent of about a 4-year-old tantrum. And just hems and haws and just whips his body around the room.
It's the most painful thing he's had to do. Beth just stands and watches him like a mother. Yeah. Like, you're going to do this.
Yes, you're going to pick up this plate. JJ and McKinley, again, Michael Ian Black, talk to Steve, who apparently is JJ's weirdo brother, who does like a robot voice and then walks away. Beth asks Katie, who is hot, quote unquote.
You're hot, right?
You're hot. So she's helped looking good for her crush, Henry.
Yeah.
And so Katie suggests she uses a little moose.
Wear pants?
Yeah.
Like, pants. Okay, all right. Like slacks.
Slacks.
And I do like, even just a kid, just the little stupid things like moose and, you know, Beth's like
just antlers with her hand, like a moose. Like no, Beth.
Let's go moose you up.
At the beach, Andy is there. JJ is there as well as Lindsay, Elizabeth Banks. Andy, just a young kid, one of the youngest kids there. Hey, can I drive the motorboat? And Andy's like, yeah, whatever. And he's chatting with JJ, and JJ literally takes a walk off a pier.
Yes.
As Lindsay walks up to make out with Andy. How dare that Andy? He has this relationship with Katie.
What are you doing? Writing him a journal.
What's you mean a journal? I write my thoughts in it every day.
Andy's so cool.
I guess I'm not all smart like you.
Make out time.
As they're making out, he just goes, "You French great."
As they both are just licking each other's
literally,
faces. Yeah.
Just tongue everywhere except in the mouth.
Right.
The boy who took the boat, brings it back, falls in the water, can't swim. Andy refuses to get him. A different kid questions Andy, like, "Where's my swimming buddy?"
Right, yeah.
And of course, Andy tells Lindsay, "I'm gonna need a couple of minutes."
It's like you can't let people drown.
So it cuts to Andy and I think JJ in the van, just tossing the kid out of the van. Like they drive this questioning kid away from camp.
Yeah,
and
where
just
are we
toss
going?
him out.
Pizza party.
I like pizza.
They just chucks him against the hill.
Back to Katie and Coop. Katie's listing possible girls for Coop because again, she promised, "I'm going to get you a woman today, Coop." And it's painfully obvious that he has a crush on Katie at this point. And you start to get the notion that it appears Katie might have a little something for Coop.
Right.
You know, he's different than Andy. He's sweet.
Yeah.
He listens. He makes jokes. It's not all about him.
Right.
Maybe there's something there, Oz.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. We then see a moosed up Beth approaching. Basically, she just has her hair like off to the side. Approaches Henry as he does science projects. Thank you, Henry. Please call me Henry. All right, Henry it is. And she pretends to like astrophysics, and there's this like back and forth as they're trying to get to know each other, but clearly have no idea what the other one really does.
Right.
Beth then tells some of the others, I'm going to town. I got to go to town. Nurse Nancy runs up. She needs something, Oz. Her husband's coming to town.
Yeah.
So she very discreetly
whispers into the microphone.
Beth, I need something because my husband's going to be here. Again, we are a PG podcast, so we cannot state what she needs. We're not going to say what she's asking for or where it would be applied. However, you could probably put 2 and 2 together. Yep.
Or just watch the movie and then you'd be like,
just watch the movie. Oh, that's what it is. You said it was subtle. It's a very subtle moment. And so Beth is going to town. JJ, Katie, Susie, McKinley, and Coop all jump in the truck to go to town. And while they're in town for just an hour,
see, it's great to get away.
Yeah, they do all of the drugs. They cut away to them literally doing drugs, robbing old ladies, beating people up. and they come back. Yeah. Wow. It's always nice to get away even for just an hour.
Well, and it's like it all escalates. They start with like they have some beer. Yeah. And then you see the girls like smoking weed, and and then it just elevates to they're at a crack house.
And like somebody's tying off and shooting up, and I think Katie at one point just buries her face in a baggie full of cocaine.
She does, yeah.
So they come back, and Katie says, "Coop, I'll see you later." And Coop's very happy.
Yeah,
there might be something happening here. We cut back to Gene. He's berating Gary. Tells him that he's going to go fondle his sweaters.
Right.
What'd you say, Gene?
This is not the first time he's berated him either. As he's berating him, Gary's like lipping everything he's about to tell him. So he's cracked down on him with the same speech so many times that Gary just
saying day to day out.
Yeah.
And he tells Gary, I'm going to go fondle my sweaters. What'd you say, Gene? I said... Go ahead.
Fondue with cheddar. We're going to have fondue with cheddar cheese tonight.
That's not what you said.
Yeah, it is. It gets right up like chest to chest.
Yeah, it's really aggressive. Right. Hey, we're going to make fondue with cheddar cheese.
I'm going to run to my book real quick.
Gary then pivots after Gene scurries off to a can of vegetables. That's right. He literally pivots to a can of vegetables, and
was it like sitting on a stump or something?
It's just a can of mixed vegetables.
Yeah.
And he says, "You're gonna have to talk to him."
Okay.
The first time I saw this movie, I don't know why. I have a very vivid memory of the first time I watched this movie. I was back at home in Grant Park, and then living at home there, and I think I'd gotten off of work at the Kankakee YMCA, and I stopped at the Bourbonnais Family Video and rented a couple of movies, and this was one of them. And so I went back and watched it with the Lyle.
Oh my!
So
what did the Lyle think?
He thought it was funny. I think some of the jokes were
a
little unlily,
but a little more colorful.
Yes, but overall, I think he liked it more than he didn't.
That's good.
Yeah. So we're on the way to the river with Victor and Neil, and
quickly on the way to the river.
Yes, we're in the van, and again, Victor's kind of talking himself up, and Neil is very aware that Victor is, the camp ladies man.
Yeah.
And it becomes very apparent now that it's just the two of them talking that Victor is not all that he has set himself up to be. He purports to be Oz, and he admits to Neil that I'm a virgin.
Yeah, I've been with zero. Which then Neil just lays into you loser.
He's just wagging his finger at him. You were such a loser. Just so aggressive in how he comes at him. So that they pull up, the van skids to a stop, the raft falls off the roof of the van. Victor tells Neil, I gotta go back to camp. But Oz, Neil can't navigate the Moose River Rapids. Only Victor can.
Victor's the only one.
He's the only one. And so Victor says, I'm going back to camp. I'm going back to Abby Bernstein. And so Neil just says, you're making a big mistake, Victor Pulack. A big mistake. Oh, and again, this is where, as I was making my notes, I started just kind of like, let's just follow each of the plot threads a little bit here. So I'm just going to kind of see this one through.
Yeah.
So we cut to Victor in the van, and now that he's by himself, you know, he can kind of be himself. He's just singing along to Danny's song, having a great time, even though we ain't got money.
This is one of my favorite bits in this movie. Oh my gosh.
So he's just singing this gentle song. Yeah. And of course the camera's on him in the van. It's not on the van driving.
Then he's just driving real casual.
Yeah. And then just out of nowhere, just, oh no! And
grips the wheel.
Yeah, and it cuts to the van, just boom, just slamming it right into a tree.
Like full speed.
Yeah. Again, the first time I saw that, I about fell off the couch.
Oh my!
Just the way that they cut and edited that together. And so he gets out of the van, all kind of banged up and bruised, and just, wait for me, Abby Bernstein. Wait for me, darling.
Meanwhile, she's making out with Gary, I believe.
Yes, yeah, back at camp.
Yeah,
he walks in, asks for, you got a stick of gum.
Yeah, he comes to the cabin and like has the gum ready, and as they're making out, you know, Victor's, wait for me, Abby Bernstein. Yeah. Like she like pauses, you know, like almost like
the telepathic contact. Like
she pauses and was like, wait a minute, and then of course Gary's like, what's wrong? Nothing, and she just like whips her shirt off.
Takes her shirt off. I also love the little touch. Danny's song is playing on the radio, so it's at the exact moment,
right?
That it happened. That the van crash with Victor. Neil is back on the river with the kids, Oz, and again, only Victor can navigate the river.
Neil's trying.
He's trying, but it's just not working. So Neil leaves the kids in the river in the raft. Only Victor can do it. So logically, I have to go get Victor.
Yeah, they're midstream.
Yeah. So he gets out, and the water's like knee high, and but of course he has to leave the kids there.
Right.
And so he gets out, and he runs over to the shore, and he jumps on a motorcycle that just happens to be sitting there. And he starts chasing Victor. Victor's running away from him down the road.
And it's like Birkenstocks.
Yeah, it's Turn Me Loose by Loverboy is playing.
Yeah.
And Victor escapes. He gets away from Neil because there's a hay bale in the middle of the road, to which Victor leaps over it in one bound. But of course, Neil can't get around it on the motorcycle.
It's a pretty dumb, like,
oh, it's very dumb.
But it's funny just watching Victor like literally an arm's length ahead of Neil on a motorcycle, reaching
Neil's
for
like reaching for him, like ah!
I think Victor's just running faster than this motorcycle.
Yeah. So we cut back to Camp Oz, and Gary, JJ, and McKinley are in the woods near the shore, observing several of the female camp counselors in bikinis kind of frolicking in the water.
It's like tossing a ball around.
Yeah, it's like a beach ball. And
splashing.
Either, I think it's, I can't remember if it's JJ or Gary, but one of them says, throw the ball. Yeah!
Oh, I think it was Gary.
Was it Gary?
Yeah, he's very excited by them just
playing with the beach ball. McKinley excuses himself, and JJ and Gary are like, what is up with McKinley? Yeah. And you hear them continue to talk as the camera follows McKinley. And they're talking about, like, we gotta find McKinley a woman, just kind of like the whole, like the coop.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah. To which we see McKinley enter a shed and have an incredibly graphic sex scene
with Bradley
Cooper's Ben character. As we hear JJ and Gary just continue to narrate about, like, like McKinley.
Yeah, like welcome Welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
A little later, we see JJ and McKinley kind of back in the same area, and they're witnessing a union ceremony between McKinley and Ben, officiated by Beth. Susie is there playing a flute. A little later on, JJ and Gary confront Ben and McKinley back in the mess hall, and you think there's going to be this awful moment where they are, coming after them and discriminating against them.
Right.
But instead, they bought Gary and JJ bought Ben and McKinley a Chase Lounge from Crate and Barrel.
Right. We weren't sure if you had one.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's the last day of camp.
Yeah.
Like that is probably my favorite through line.
It's the last day of camp.
All of this extravagant plot is happening literally within minutes of other things.
Yes. We go back to Beth. The Steve character, JJ's weird brother from before, asks Beth, "Can I perform at the talent show?" And Beth agrees, much to Ben and Susie's chagrin. They're the organizers of the talent show. While giving a science lesson, Henry is sharing a cry with the kids. He's only an associate professor.
Right? They like drape him in hugs. Yeah. We're here for you, Henry.
Katie tells Andy how much fun that she had in town, but he ignores her to go get ribs.
Yeah.
Oh, the ribs are done.
Ribs are right. Ribs are done.
Lindsay then flirts with Andy. Lindsay apparently got to the ribs first because her face is just covered in barbecue sauce.
And it's like every time they cut away and back to her, it's progressively ribbier.
Like she was eating more as the camera cut back to Andy.
She's got a little bit on the corners of her mouth, and by the time he cuts back to her, it's up by her eyebrow.
It's everywhere.
You got a little
barbecue. And she's like, whatever, I want to make out. It's just barbecue sauce. Beth and Henry finally share a kiss after she agrees to tell his supervising professor how great he is, because apparently that's the only way he's going to make tenure, is if he gets a recommendation from someone, even if that someone is a camp counselor who knows nothing about astrophysics.
Yes.
While taking a kid water skiing, Andy, he and Lindsay are in the boat. They, of course, lose the kid, and he just turns to Lindsay and says, "You taste like a burger. I don't like you anymore." The kid goes under the water, and of course, there's a second kid in the boat, so they have to jump back in the van and dump the second kid.
Dispose the second kid.
I got a feeling it was the same stunt guy, just dressed in different outfits.
But at least they had the continuity of putting him in different, matching outfits with.
I'm just hopping all over the place here because again, that's really what this movie is. It's just a series of little vignettes. Gene is talking to the vegetable can. He says he's gonna go do something else very lewd to himself. But the can confronts him. Gene, you've got to be honest with yourself and others. So the can is literally talking. The top of the can is like flapping up and down like a little mouth. Again, I didn't quite know what to make of this, and it's really pretty stupid, but it's
very
still
stupid.
Funny.
Yeah, because, and I think just the way it's received of like, this is a very touching part of the movie of watching Gene come within himself,
come
to be himself, and it's like, it's very much therapeutic and empowering for Gene, but it's done with a can of
vegetables voiced by H. John Benjamin.
Yeah.
Later on, back at the mess hall for dinner, Gene comes out, tells the campers they have a great winter, and then he says something else lewd right in front of the entire camp.
Right.
And then says, "You know what? I met a friend, and he showed me a new way."
Showed me a new way.
A refrigerator is then wheeled out to Gene, at which Gene apparently has a special relationship with this refrigerator, which he is now empowered to share in front of the campers and in front of others. So kudos to Gene.
Yes, very, very much so.
It's now 7:35 p.m. Oz, so this day's just rolling along despite everything that's going on. Beth is walking along the lake with Henry. "Hey, you, penny for your thoughts." And they're talking about the future, and he says, "Tomorrow is the least of our problems." And she says, tell me you don't have crabs. He says, yes, but that's not the point. Henry then tells Beth that what he saw earlier was a piece of Skylab falling directly at the camp.
Right.
Here's the plot device, Oz. Here's the fear. Here's the point to which everything's going to pivot around for the remainder of the movie.
Yeah.
Henry suggests they build a homemade Skylab tracking device.
Yep.
Which is
that'll help.
Yes. Katie and Coop have a moment in a barn. She gives him her sweatshirt.
Because he's really cold.
Yeah, it's really cold. He gives her his flannel and takes it back. You know, it's my favorite shirt. Do I have to get it back? Yeah.
Yeah.
Coop and
so now he's wearing both.
Yeah, so he has both on while she's just shivering. And they share a kiss, Oz.
They do.
Coop and Katie share a kiss while there's a goat braying in the background.
But they did keep their tongues in their mouth.
They did. It was not nearly as graphic as Andy's kissing.
No.
Coop calls his parents. He says he has a girlfriend.
Oh, I know. He like hops right to, I've met someone.
I've met someone. She's really special. I don't think so.
Right.
It's clear they're asking what her ethnicity is. Beth is expressing her skepticism at this. Like, because she's seen Andy all summer.
Yeah.
Later, Coop walks in on Katie and Andy having a very rough conversation. This isn't a good time, Coop. Oh, okay. And he leaves and celebrates because Coop thinks this is Katie breaking up with Andy.
Broken up.
Yeah. Later on, however, Katie tells Coop, I can't do this. I have a boyfriend. And then Coop just responds to her, I don't care if you're bow-legged. I don't care if you're bilingual.
I don't care if you're late for shul.
Later, Coop asks Andy, you need to let go of Katie. And he's like, no, man, she's hot.
Priorities.
Yeah. And then Coop goes outside, slips out a banana peel. Somehow he kicks an empty water pail ends up on his foot. He kicks it in the air. It falls on his head.
I think Harden My Heart playing here by Quarter Flash.
Yeah. So Coop is just, oh God, he thought he had her and then he didn't. Yeah. And so he's off just despondent. And of all people, Gene comes up to teach Coop about the new way.
The new way.
So we get a training montage, Oz.
Love a montage.
Here we go. We got a montage. One of our favorite things. Coop is now cool, Oz. So it's now
because he's got a headband on.
So it's now 16 minutes later from when we were in the mess hall, and Neil has returned to camp, and he tells Beth, Victor abandoned the kids. They're on the river. They're gonna go over the falls.
Cut to the kids.
Ah!
Right. A couple of them are smiling. Like one take.
Victor then they find him milling about, and Victor comes across Abby making out with a camper.
Yeah, he's making out with like the kid who announces it's time to wake up and time for lunch.
And she doesn't remember Victor's name from earlier in the day. Yeah. You snooze, you lose, dude.
Because this kid is at least the third person she's made out with today.
Yeah, minimum. Beth and Neil convince Victor, you got to go back for the kids. And so he and Neil, of course, take off on foot. They arrive back at the river, and Victor goes into the water to save the kids, but the camera stays on Neil as Neil just narrates what he's seeing. Go ahead, Oz.
No, just you're doing it.
Oh, he saved him. So the kids are safe, and that plot thread is wrapped up. Henry calculates that Skylab is going to fall directly on the rec hall, Oz. What are we going to do? That's where the talent show is.
Right.
He speculates that with the nerdy kids and their device, they might be able to redirect the object using some kind of power that this machine they made has. If only they had a device that could generate a random number from 1 through 20.
Where are they going to find that?
Cut back to Dungeons and Dragons kid.
D&D kid.
He's got his 20-sided die. So we're now at the talent show, Oz. And Susie and Ben introduce Alan Shemper a Catskills comedian, also played by Michael Showalter.
Yes.
I went to camp so long ago, it was the Stone Age.
No, it wasn't. It was the Ice Age.
And the crowd is just loving it.
Oh, like the funniest thing they've ever seen. I do love that genuine. Anytime Shipper's on there, I mean, the adults especially, the kids can't reach that level because they aren't good.
Zach Orth is like holding his side because he's laughing. Right? It's like he pulls a muscle in his ribs because he's been laughing so hard.
It is just the highest level of comedy.
They are. Oh, it is the funniest thing any of them have ever seen.
But at the same time, the dumbest jokes.
Yeah, it's terrible. I was born so long ago.
Jesus Christ was my counselor.
and at that moment, Gail is there with her arts and crafts kids, and Judah Friedlander's Ronald von Kleinenstein shows up. I want you back, Gail.
She looks to her supporting children and be strong, Gail.
Be strong, Gail. And she tells him, no thanks. I'm good.
I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I use that line all the time. Just so sick and tired of being sick and tired.
You'll be back, Gail.
Exit Judah Friedlander.
That's it. There goes Judah Friedlander. Susie then intros her Godspell group, and up front just cuts them off at the knee, says they're terrible.
Right.
The singer is amazing.
Oh, like absolutely
legitimately.
amazing.
I got a feeling this was somebody who actually probably performs in real musicals. Yeah. And as soon as they're done with this genuinely amazing performance, the crowd just boos.
Yeah.
Boo! When It's Over by Loverboy is playing as Coop confidently walks into the rec hall with his headband and his crop top and his open mouth.
Yeah. Oh, he's so cool now.
Yeah. He walks into the room. Abby and Lindsay are swooning. Katie is taken, and Andy does Paul Rudd, I will say, does like the best double take I have ever seen.
Oh yeah, it's outstanding.
I'll stop for a moment. I actually have worked a GIF of that moment into much of my professional delivery and like some of my programming. So like, for instance, I control the screens of several TVs in our school, like several monitors in the halls and stuff.
Gotcha. And
I have one screen that shows like a lot of the public school universities in Illinois, like, hey, if you start senior year with a GPA of 2.8 and you apply to Eastern, welcome to Eastern.
Right. Okay.
And next to that, in several other schools, I have the Paul Rudd doing the double take. What? I have a feeling not many other people pick up on the reference, but
I doubt it.
Yes, but it's still
they recognize Paul Rudd. What Ant-Man movie was that?
What's Ant-Man doing? Yeah. But again, that's almost my wink at this movie. Folded into my professional persona. Yeah.
Well done.
As Beth Henry and the science nerds panic at the machine, Steve, robot talking Steve's takes the stage. And one of the other lines that Patreon subscriber Melissa L and I share a lot is he walks up on stage and then just stands there. To which JJ from the audience yells, "Come on, do something, or get off the stage."
Very aggressively.
Yes. Steve then reaches out his hands and somehow conjures a wind that just blows through and around the rec hall.
It always the way he looks always reminds me of those like old Maxell commercials.
Yes, it's very Maxell commercial. Good call. So this wind is just whipping around everywhere. Oh, yeah. It's outside,
just like blowing people against the walls. Yes. Like
Abby and Lindsay are making out in the Katie pushes Andy aside, runs after Coop, tells him, I love you, Gerald Cooperberg. They share a passionate kiss, and the device and or Steve's wind pushes the piece of Skylab past the rec hall.
Meanwhile, Andy is taking advantage of this wind and air guitaring into
it. and that's the evening, folks. That wraps up the night. So we then cut to the next morning. Campers are packing up, saying their goodbyes, and
buses are showing up.
They're getting ready to leave. Henry runs up to Beth with a giant trophy in hand. I won the Hopkins Award.
Honey.
And NASA hired me.
Oh.
And one of the other moments I remember the first time I watched this is he just hands the trophy to someone who's just off camera.
Yeah. Hands it to nothing.
Yeah, and I've seen that bit done in other things, but that was the first, like the earliest time I'd ever seen that gag done. And, you know, I got to go to NASA, but Beth, you're going to come with me. And I'm going to make sure I fly you back here for the summer so you can continue being the lead camp counselor, the camp director. And, oh, by the way, Henry, I'm pregnant.
Yeah. She caresses his face. Huh, it's happened. They met less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah, approximately probably 22 hours prior to this. Gail and the boy Aaron, one of her arts and crafts kids are getting married.
The one who was massaging her shoulders and was really there for her. Yeah.
Gene and the can just share a nod at each other. Katie tells Coop last night was great, but you know I'm going to stick with Andy because he's hot and I'm 16.
He's hot. Yeah, exactly. He's hot. And I'm 16.
And as she's telling him this, he breaks the fourth wall. Just looks right at the camera.
Like this is He just kind of nods and okay.
And he has accepted it at this point.
Yes.
So Beth and Coop kind of share a moment, and they walk off screen together, and the credits roll. And Oz, my friend, that is 2001's comedy classic.
I love this
American
movie.
Summer. I took way too long describing this movie as I'm looking at where we're at, but there's just so many funny moments in this movie, and I felt obligated to hit them all.
Fair enough.
All right, hey folks, it's that point in the show where Oz and I will each give our own unique rating to the film we've been yapping about, Wet Hot American Summer. Oz, how would you rate this flick?
I'm going to give this a single brown crayon.
Single brown crayon. Yep.
All right. What are you giving it?
I'm going to go with 93 talking vegetable cans.
Oh, good one.
Mm-hmm. Next up, folks, we've got Outside Insights. Hey, Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs searching for unprofessional reviews that tickle our funny bones, and we hope they tickle yours as well. Oz, what is your Outside Insight?
I have 3 short ones. I know that we're the last few weeks were really straight off course with the amount, but you know what? It's our show, so who cares? My first one, all 3 of these come from Amazon.
Okay.
My first one is from Scott. He said, it's a 1-star review. All these are 1-star reviews. He says, not even so bad it's good. We had rented this movie because a friend told us it was really funny and a great flashback to camp days. It was neither. Really bad. Super weak. I've never even written a bad movie review before, so this is the first. Yes, this movie was bad enough to drive me to write a first poor review. There were maybe a few rare moments that were mildly amusing, but really, we should have just turned it off. He's never done this before.
Look what you did to me, movie.
Right.
Look what you made me do.
You did it. So this next one is a 1-star review from Scholarly in SoCal. Dumbest movie ever made. A total failure. How do you parody 80s camp movies without any actual TNA, which is the hallmark of those types of films? They think they're sassy and clever when they really are just pathetic.
So what this movie is missing is TNA.
Yes. That's what he wanted more of. Mm-hmm. And this last one comes from Cherry 12. 1-star review. This movie was so bad. It was so. This movie was so bad. It was so bad. I kept watching because I was fascinated by how young all the stars were. It was really, really terrible. At one point, the editing was so awful that Joe Lo Truglio's stunt double was featured. Then they cut away quickly and showed the actual actor. It was such a bad movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that wasn't done intentionally.
Cherry 12, I don't think this comedy is for you.
Nope.
Yeah, I was reading. I wanted the first 2, and then this one were like, they cut away to a stunt double, didn't even realize it. No, they exactly realized it.
Yes, and that's why it was done.
That's why it's funny.
That's why it's there.
All right, those are my 3. What do you got?
I'm going to bring one today. As always, it's from the Internet Movie Database. This is a 1 out of 10 review from Phase TDS, left in March of 2006. I really don't get what it is people like about this movie. I mean, maybe 5% of the jokes worked. The calculation there.
Yeah.
It was like a long, bad SNL skit or something. I would rather watch Weekend at Bernie's 2 3 times in a row than see this again.
That movie's fun. Like, okay.
3 times in a row. And only 5% of the jokes worked. Only 1 out of 20 jokes worked out. I did the math.
In this movie, it's still pretty good level amount of jokes, though.
All right. Well, hey, folks, it is that point of the show you've all been waiting for, our signature segment, the 3, 2, 1, in which Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about this week's movie, Wet Hot American Summer. Oz, what are your 3 goods?
My first good is just the whole first act. Yep. I really liked establishing the characters, establishing a little bit about what they're going to be encountering for that day.
Yep. For that day.
For that day. My second good was the entire second act, where we saw a lot of this play out.
I see where this is going. Yeah.
And then my third good was all of the third act, where we saw it all tied together to where we really felt we were with these people throughout their entire 24 hours. So those are my 3 goods.
I liked all 3 parts of this movie. Right. So good.
What are your 3 goods?
I'm going to be a little more specific than you were.
I couldn't nail it down.
I know. I agree completely. This movie is just so fun. My first good is just Paul Rudd.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, he is such a talented performer, and we've seen it in everything he's done. He can do superheroes. He can do drama.
Except Halloween 6.
Except yes. Except Halloween 6.
It was the material.
But again, he just nails it in this movie. And it's like when Paul Rudd is just allowed to kind of Paul Rudd it. Like, I mean, again, the classic example for me is all the Conan bits. You know, where he comes on and to promote a movie and it's always Mac and Me.
Always.
But it's like they just, wound up the dial in his back and just turned him loose. And he just knocked it out of the park. Every moment he was on screen, I was in stitches.
Well, and I think it's a true testament to him as a performer, as he knows when enough is enough.
Yeah.
Like, he'll take the funny and then he'll leave it there. Whereas, like, last week when we were talking about John Leguizamo, and it felt like he was left to just go as well. Yes. And it just never stopped. Yeah. Like, Paul Rudd understands comedy lives in a box. Mm-hmm. It's not splatter paint.
Yeah. So yes, just Paul Rudd is my first one.
Yes.
My second good. I'm just some of the Victor and Neil stuff. I just particularly just when they're in the van, like when he like a virgin and such a loser. And then just the crashing and all that.
Well, those two really, out of all of the like the State and Stella, like everybody else performed in this movie with outside of stable members.
Yeah,
it felt like the Victor Neil stuff was the only real the real like duo that have like background together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, to where, because you're looking at Michael Showalter. He really didn't interact with any other State members throughout the movie.
Yeah, not extensively.
And Michael Ian Black really didn't much either. And so these two having an opportunity to just kind of run with it was, you could tell there was chemistry already established.
Yeah, he's such a loser.
He's so mad.
My last good is contrary to one of your outside insights. I thought the pacing and editing in this was amazing.
Oh yeah,
and that's really what like the performances were great, but this movie had to be edited in just such a way to like really emphasize some of those gags and some of those jokes. Like cutting away from the kid in the speedboat to him getting tossed out of the van,
right?
And the cut of Victor singing in the other van, and then just slamming right into the tree, and going back to Abby and Gary making out, just the editing was so great in this movie, and it's so the jokes.
So shout out to Meg Rediker, which I'm sure is Sally Minky's editing pen name.
Yes, pen name or protege.
There
so
you go.
I'm sure fake Aunt Sally was involved in some way.
Meg Redeker comes from the editing school of Sally Minky. She's from that tree, like Bill Belichick has a tree.
Yeah, the coaching tree, the Andy Reid tree, the Shanahan tree,
the Sally Minky tree,
the Sally Minky editing tree. All right, hey Oz, what are your two bads?
My first one is, I understand they were doing a send-up of an 80s era movie, but they were throwing in a lot of 80s, what was acceptable at the time, 80s era language, in a non-80s era film. Like, you made this in, like, 2000, what was it?
2001.
Okay, you made this in 2001. You know better.
Yeah,
at this point,
some of the language used towards the Ben and McKinley characters in particular.
Yeah.
Yep.
We still would have gotten the point that this was an 80s film without that type of language. Now, they weren't anti that, as you established that they were accepting.
The storyline eventually looped around. However, you could have done that in a way that still got the point across without using slurs.
So that's my first bad, was just using those slurs to establish an era that you were already had established. You don't need to throw that language in as well. My second bad is that just this movie is just so criminally overlooked.
Yeah.
I'd put this in the same vein of like Dewey Cox Story, of like, if you enjoy comedies and you like stupid comedies, just watch this movie. Like, it's funny. It's hilarious.
Just turn your brain off and laugh.
Yeah, just enjoy it, because it's exactly what it set out to be. So that's my second bad, is just how overlooked this film is.
Yeah.
What are your two bads?
I'm going to start with Guys Like Andy. Again, as much as Paul Rudd was amazing in this movie, so it has really nothing. This is just more my own personal thing. Just that type of personality. Like, I just have such a problem with just your arrogant, self-absorbed male. But again, Paul Rudd played the character so well in this movie. Like, you're supposed to hate the character even though you love seeing him on screen, because it's Paul Rudd.
He does play him as a joke.
Yes, yeah. So, like, it's kind of a bad wrapped in a good in a way. But just Guys Like Andy is my first bad. And my second one was there were a couple of lulls here. Like there was a scene where they were playing a softball. They were getting ready to play a softball game against another camp.
Camp Tiger Claw.
Yeah, I just left it out because
it was.
Yeah, some of the Coop Katie stuff drug a little bit too. Like, but again, I'm being really nitpicky here. So.
Yeah, it's just fluff. I mean, it was. There were scenes, and it's one of those kind of, like we mentioned before. Like, not every joke is gonna land.
Yeah,
and so it's like they were funny enough, but it's like, compared to what you're surrounding it with, it's like, okay, keep going.
You taste like a burger. I don't like you anymore.
This movie is extremely quotable.
Yes. All right. Those are my two. Those are my two bads. So hey, Oz, what's your
why did Ron drive all the way to camp for Gail when she was literally finished the next day?
Yes, she would have been on the road 12 hours later.
Yeah, like, he drove apparently all day to get there, came to the talent show, made a scene, and she dismissed him, and then that was it with Ron. Like, but just why did he choose to come all the way her last day of camp? So that was my hunt. What do you have for a hunt?
My hunt is kind of similar. It takes place at a similar moment in the movie. If they were calculating that piece of Skylab was going to fall right on the rec hall, why not just move the talent show to a different location?
There's nowhere else.
That's they had to do it. It was the only place with a stage, I guess.
Yeah, nowhere else. Yeah, nowhere else.
Alan Shemper, he was contracted to use that space.
Right. He refused to work anywhere else. Like, it has to be here.
Yep. So, I guess that's my
Fair enough.
Yeah. So that's 2001's Wet Hot American Summer, Oz. That is an Oz and Curtis classic.
It very, 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 very much is. I love that movie.
Yeah. So that really kickstarts our 5-weeker. Again, we are at the time of this recording, we're in May of 2024. Summer movies. So Wet Hot American Summer. Hey Oz, what do we got next week?
We're going to cover a movie next week that actually is from the 80s, so it doesn't have to throw back to an era. Yes,
it's not the facsimile of an 80s movie.
Nope. This comes from the 80s, and this has been one of my favorite movies for a very long time.
Yes, you love this movie.
Even as a child, I've enjoyed this movie. And it really shaped my view of my profession going into it. We're going to cover 1987 Summer School with Mark Harmon. I do really, really enjoy this movie, and I really love the educational message behind it. Really way ahead of its time in terms of growth mindset and, and that approach. But I think there's a lot of strong message to come from this, a lot of comedy to come from this. The message is much stronger than the performances. But by and large, it's just one of those movies, you turn your brain off, you enjoy it, and you're in good shape. So we are going to be back next week to go with round 2 of Summer Movies Month as we cover Summer School. Yeah. There's some stars in this one too, really. You can catch this streaming on Pluto TV with ads, but it is available for streaming, directed by Carl Reiner.
Some strong comedy chops behind this one.
Yeah, really, really does. And Mark Harmon does a great job. Kirstie Alley's in the movie. Shawnee Smith, Courtney Thorne-Smith.
The guy, I forget the actor's name, but the guy who plays the vice principal, he's been in a bunch of stuff too.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff. I can't think of his name either. But there's people in here that you're like, I think I've seen that
guy.
Yeah. I can't think of the actress's name. She was in a bunch of 80s stuff too. I know she was in Lost Boys. I know she was in like Nightmare on Elm Street 4 or 5. She was the black girl that needed help with her driver's license.
Okay.
But I can't think of her name, but it doesn't matter. But either way, we're covering Summer School next week. Social media-wise, you guys can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There is a Patreon link down below if you'd like to join the army. And other than that, this has been an excellent kickoff to the new month. And we will be back next month. We'll be back next month. But we'll be back next week as well to cover Mark Harmon in Summer School for another episode of Let's Talk About Flicks. I'm Oz.
I'm Curtis.
And we'll see you guys then.